project that I've been working on for the past a little bit over 4 years called Cyanosis. And I began that project with a painting of my nephew, Michael. And I painted half of Michael's face blue as a way of emphasizing his brown complexion. So rather than ignore his complexion, I wanted that to be a part of the content. And so cyanosis is a term that describes blueness of the skin that results from improperly oxygenated blood. The universal aspect of those paintings is that all of us are dealing with some kind of conflict, trauma, or adversity that the people that we engage with on a day-to-day basis might not have any idea about. And yet many of us are able to present our best selves to the world. And my question through those paintings is, what would it look like if that trauma or adversity was shown on the skin? Would it invite people to be any kinder to us? Would things just remain the same? But what effect would it have if you could see what my internal struggle was on it? If you could see that on my face, how might it affect our relationship or the relationships that you have with people? Definitely there's inspiration there in thinking about the capacity that the arts have to influence culture and positively impact community. My profession is not one that is specifically a service sort of profession. I think about what I do as an artist of having some component of service to a community. My name is William Paul Thomas and I'm a painter. So I really credit a lot of my creative interests and pursuits to my grandmother's influence. So my grandmother ran a nonprofit organization, and through that organization we did lots of different arts activities. And I think often when it came time to draw things, my granny would ask me to draw them, and she would encourage me to draw, and maybe whether I wanted to or not. Projects that we worked on through the organization, I think, has inspired me to really consider the layers of significance that are built into making artworks, right? So it's more than just like making pretty pictures. There are things that can, making art, making paintings, making drawings, making films, there are things that can educate, inspire, just cultivate a richer understanding of our cultural experiences as people. Something I really like about commission work is the opportunity to sort of bring someone else's ideas together with my own. I enjoy the collaboration especially when it's someone who I think has great ideas, right? And so if someone has a project in mind and they feel like there's something about my work that really fits well with the project that they're interested in, that collaboration I think can be really fruitful.
William, thank you for coming out. I really, really appreciate it. I love your work from the day I saw it at one of the installations you had on Duke's campus. Beautiful, just the way you can capture the face of Black men and just tell the story through cyanosis. It's amazing.
Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate that feedback on the work. I remember you coming into the studio while I was there doing that residency. And I remember seeing your work first in that photography exhibit. And so it was nice, that kind of exchange that we had. So a lot of really important connections, I think, were made when we first met. And so when you let me know that you had a project you were working on, I was really excited just to hear more about it. So what do you have in mind?
Yeah, so I'm shooting a narrative film that I wrote and directing. It's gonna be shot completely at my house. We're gonna use a wall right over there for your work, hopefully. I wanna get 2 of your paintings and then possibly have you commission one of an original work for the film. It would be great to get the female lead or possibly the male and female lead together and just see what happens. The central color for my film is red, and that goes back to the juxtaposition of 2 males, potentially the female lead as the centerpiece with half a blue face, but yet the color of the film is red and power struggle. Yes.
Okay. So I'm to understand we want 2 pieces that have already been made that you want to take a look
Yes.
at, with the 3rd piece being based on one or both of the main characters
Yes.
in the film. Okay.
Yes.
So I brought a couple like little magazines that have some images.
Yeah, that painting really speaks to me. I love the way he's looking back, and to have this on one side, this on the other, and then have the focal point, the main character or characters of the film in the middle. I think that would be amazing.
So I guess first thing, if we could arrange to have both of them meet us to for me to photograph them, then I can make a better decision about like which direction to go in, if it makes sense to have both of them in the piece or just one, but it'll give me some options.
Okay, yeah, and I'm definitely all for that. I can arrange for them to come up, and you can get a photo shoot in with them, and we'll go from there.
It's really important for me that I take my own photographs for the paintings. Ideally, I get to be involved at every step of the process and make choices about the lighting and the poses and the expressions. That's what makes the painting fun for me. So it's just a matter of me being involved at every stage of the process is really important to me. So I grew up drawing all the time, and in college I started painting maybe in my 2nd semester or 2nd year of college, and it was a natural segue from drawing in that you still have to pay attention to value changes, value contrast. And my undergraduate emphasis wasn't painting and drawing, but as an art major I had to take other studio classes, so photography was a part of that as well. I think taking photography in college was a really important aspect of me growing in terms of being deliberate about the way that I wanted my images and my paintings to work. And for me, I think also what's important about photographing models, what it allows for is the kind of convenience, and so that I wouldn't expect either of these 2 professionals to be able to like come to my place and sit for hours on end while I paint them. I think shopping at Michael's was cool because I was looking for certain things. Materials are really important to me, and I like to choose oil paint that is a really high quality in terms of the pigment. So one great thing about working with oils is that if you're trying to blend value transitions is that they stay wet for a long time. And so blending a lighter value to a darker value or blending colors is made that much easier because the medium itself stays wet. I look for essentially, like I guess like any creative, the materials that are going to do the thing that I want them to do. And so that is invaluable to me. So when I get ready to paint, I like to put a base down, usually using acrylic paint. And it's always important for me to do acrylic paint as a base layer as opposed to working with acrylic paint on top of an oil painting. And the risk of putting acrylic on top of oil is that the paint will likely not cure properly if you were to work that way, but it's okay to put an acrylic base and then work on top of oil. And you'll be sure that the oil will adhere to the canvas. And so once that base is applied, then I start either with a contour of the person's face, so that's sort of outline, shaped guidelines for me to follow to block in color. Basically working from the general to the specific. So I've decided that this part of the canvas is right side up, so I just flipped it because I often will turn the painting upside down to get a more abstracted version of the image that I'm looking at, right? So instead of looking at, let's say, an eyes, nose, and a mouth, I start to look at just shapes, look at the image that I'm looking at as abstract shapes and not get hung up on, well, I know what an eye or nose should look like, and getting caught up on those mental models for those things. So instead, I want to be able to sort of switch my mind over to just looking at the face as a group of shapes together. And so working upside down helps with that. So I'm about to make an adjustment on this painting where I notice I got the placement wrong. So I placed the nose lower down than it should be. So I needed to bring it up to where this white outline is now. So I'm gonna take some Turpenoid, essentially a kind of paint thinner. And this is also gonna be raised. Thankfully, it's early enough in the process where I haven't laid down a significant amount of paint where it really alters the integrity of my image. So it's good to kind of spot those things right away. I was noticing that the chin is there's probably more of a gap between the bottom of the canvas and where her chin starts. So I'm gonna also make that line again so it's a little bit higher. My favorite part of the process of painting is figuring out color. Color mixing is really challenging and exciting. I think trying to match a color, trying to match a different value when it comes time to turn my reference into an artwork in itself. Color is of the utmost importance, and so all the choices that I make, everything that I do in terms of color mixing is probably the part that I get the most out of. Thinking about other ways to resolve a composition is really important to, I think, a commission project. Is that, yeah, maybe there is a thing that I do that is an element that is consistent in previous work, but maybe for a commission project, some of those elements have to change because it's a better solution for what the client is asking for. So when Seneca mentioned that he'd be using red in his film, that inspired me to thinking about using red in Katrina's portrait. So instead of the blue that I use for the Cyanosis portraits, to kind of combine our ideas in a way, right? Instead of with the blue, the reds that he'd potentially be using in the film to highlight certain narrative aspects of the film. So essentially what I'm doing is going through, observing my image, the value relationships that I see, and changing her sort of brown skin tone to a reddish tone on the bottom half of her face. Anytime I'm looking at painting, I can't help but think about the act of painting. Like I'm looking at the way it's created, the way the brush strokes look, the way that the stretcher has been built, the way that the canvas is wrapped. All these different elements that you can sort of deconstruct when you look at how a painting is made. That's just something that's really exciting for me and inspirational. And I always feel like when I go through a gallery exhibition or museum exhibition, like I'm ready to go back to work. I really love coming into the North Carolina Art Museum. And this one is particularly special because my work happens to be here, and this is the first time I've ever had work in the North Carolina Art Museum. And it feels amazing to see my work in a space that is, I think has been designed as a space of reverence for artwork. And so since my intention with my paintings is to help elevate and honor the people that I've painted, to see their faces represented in a space that helps do that job is really important. A lot of times we look at museum and gallery exhibitions as a way of validating the artwork itself. And so whether or not that's true, I understand that to be the way that sometimes we assess an artwork's value. And so I do feel like to have work in a museum is a special thing and does help sort of elevate the work to a certain standard. So it's really exciting to have work in a space where people come specifically to enjoy artwork. So I'm actually really inspired and curious about people in general, and painting just serves as a kind of like excuse to do that, right? So the men in these paintings have not been victims of police violence. And that's a really important part of this series, is that none of these people are being acknowledged because something awful is happening to them or because they are celebrities. They're people that I get to engage with personally. So whether they're a stranger, someone I'm meeting for the first time, or they're a relative, they're being venerated and celebrated just because they're people. And so The way that I choose models, that's determined by like, is there a relationship that I'd like to strengthen, or is there a person I'd like to get to know better? Is there some curiosity that needs to be satisfied, and the painting just serves as a mechanism to be able to do that. So for the painting that I'm doing for Seneca's film, that I'm sort of anxious about it being an accurate likeness, in that this is someone who presents himself on camera often, and I want it to be a faithful and accurate likeness of her. So I think my challenge is one that I won't know whether or not I've met it until the painting is unveiled. So as I add the last few details of this piece, I'm reminded that you could continue to work on a painting forever. I think you could always be making edits, always add more details, change things, make all these different adjustments. So it kind of just becomes a decision to stop where you feel like the painting is working without overworking it. So I'm going in and just tightening up certain areas that I think need a little bit more information, again, without overdoing it. And so what's important is that I step back sometimes. So I've been working really up close to the image for most of the process, but frequently, or often enough, I try to step back at a distance to see what the overall piece looks like. So to go from being super close to the painting to stepping a few paces back, just so I can get a sense of what I'm actually working with and what the entire image looks like. So that's something I definitely recommend for painters working with representational images, is to assess not just like the minute details, but the overall image, and see how those things kind of work together. So are y'all ready to see the final piece?
Yeah,
I'm
nervous myself to show y'all.
I can't even stay still. Toes rolling, over here doing all this.
So I hope to see y'all liking. Maybe I'll do a little quick countdown.
Okay.
3,
All right.
2,
1. Oh my God.
Oh wow.
Oh my God, it is beautiful.
It's super dope.
Wow, this is beautiful.
I love it.
Oh.
Dang. I've never seen myself as a painting, so this is different.
It's beautiful.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I try to play around with the colors, so changing from the cyanosis sort of blue to thinking about you saying that you would have red kind of featured in the narrative of the film. And so thought about using red for her instead.
Oh my God, it's
so
beautiful.
Cool.
And then the thinking about the background color sort of fitting right in between those two pieces.
Yeah.
Right.
And her having a more kind of a pensive kind of expression with her head down, and maybe that mirrored at some point her character would be experiencing that in the film. So just thinking about the range of emotions that she's probably going through.
Quite a few times.
And decided on that.
Yeah.
Having a sort of introspective moment. Yeah.
I think that's you.
Like it literally looks like a photo, because this is my face. You know? This is super cool.
I love the color. Oh my God.
The color is everything.
Wow. Man, thank you, Will. This is amazing. Thank you.
Problem, man.
Thank
Really,
you.
Yes, this is dope.
Really glad.
It really means a lot to have your artwork on the wall, man.
It does. Like,
it really is going to
this so
help really
awesome.
bring something special to the film.
One of the things that I really love about this painting, this project, is Seneca's and Katrina's response to it. So a lot of this work I'm doing to recognize and venerate the people in the portraits, and the fact that they enjoyed it so much is really impactful for me. Really excited that they love the piece. I'm really inspired by the opportunity that I have as an artist to highlight people that might not otherwise be recognized. Inviting, the viewer to have an interaction with someone that they may not otherwise have. I think it's a problem to be colorblind in a social sense, right? To not acknowledge people being black, white, or brown. I think it's more important to acknowledge that in spite of those differences, the humanity that spans across these different categorizations that we have for people. To acknowledge that race is a social construct, I think is more important than to imagine that race is non-existent. I'm really connected to the idea that there's a great social impact that I think being an artist has the potential for. And that part of it, that being coupled with my interest in just making pictures, is just a great opportunity all around.